let's begin this module. ಕೆಲವೊಂದು goals and objectives ಅನ್ನ ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ ಬಿಡೋಣ before we start discussing the content, which is about classroom conversations. So the first and foremost goal ನಮಗೆ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು for all the whole program as such is creating an English environment in the classroom. So let's just take a minute to reflect on what that means to us and how we can become more efficient as teachers to create an English environment. So in those same lines, ಈ modules ಗಳು ನಮಗೆ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಅವರ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ರೂಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಎನ್ವೈರನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡೋದಿದೆ. ಹೇಗೆ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಉದ್ದೇಶ ಹೇಗಿದೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ರೂಮ್ ಎನ್ವೈರನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. ಅದು ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಲರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಮಟೀರಿಯಲ್ಸ್ ಇಂದ ಆಗ್ಬಹುದು, ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಟೆಕ್ನಿಕ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಇಂದ ಟೀಚರ್ ಏನ್ ಬಳಸ್ತಾರೆ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ರೂಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಟೆಕ್ನಿಕ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಇಂದ ಆಗಬಹುದು. ಮತ್ತೆ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ರೂಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತಾಡೋದ್ರಿಂದ ದ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಎಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ರೂಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತಾಡೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಆಗಬಹುದು. ಸೊ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ರೂಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಮಾತನಾಡುವುದು ಅನ್ನೋದು ಒಂದು ಉದ್ದೇಶನ ನಾವು ಮುಂದಿಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅಥವಾ ಒಂದು ಗುರಿಯಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಾವು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಗ್ರಾಮರ್ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಕಾಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಹೇಗೆ ಟೀಚ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ the main element in a classroom, the main pillar in the classroom to create this environment for the children are nobody but the teachers. So our teachers ಅನ್ನ ನಾವು ಟಾರ್ಗೆಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಟೀಚರ್ಸಿಗೆ ನಾವು ಸಶಕ್ತೀಕರಣ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ, ಸಬಲೀಕರಣ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ, ಅವರ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಕಾನ್ವರ್ಸೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾವು ಇಂಪ್ರೂವ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ, ಅವರ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಬಳಕೆಯನ್ನ ನಾವು ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ತಾನೇ ಆಗಿ ಆಟೋಮೆಟಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಎನ್ವೈರನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಒಂದು ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೋಸ್ಕರ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಆ ಒಂದು ಉದ್ದೇಶ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಾವು ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಟಾರ್ಗೆಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕಾಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಟಾರ್ಗೆಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿಲ್ಲ, ನಾವು ಟೀಚರ್ಸಿಗೋಸ್ಕರ ಕೇಟರ್ ಮಾಡುವ ಉದ್ದೇಶನ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಾವು ಈ ಮಾಡ್ಯೂಲ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀವಿ ಅಂಡ್ ಅದನ್ನೇ ನಾವು ಫೆಸಿಲಿಟೇಟ್ ಮಾಡೋರಿದೀವಿ ಇನ್ ದ ಟೀಚರ್ ಟ್ರೈನಿಂಗ್ ಸೆಷನ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಆಸ್ ಟೀಚರ್ ಮೆಂಟರ್ಸ್ ನಮಗೆ ಈ ಒಂದು ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್ ನಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಟೀಚರ್ಸಿಗೆ ಅನಿಸ್ಬೋದು, ಇಲ್ಲ ನನಗೆ ಕಲಿಕಾ ಚೇತರಿಕೆ ನಡೀತಾ ಇದೆ, ಸೊ ನನಗೆ ಈ ಒಂದು ಪೋಯಮ್ ಹೇಗೆ ಹ್ಯಾಂಡಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಅಥವಾ ಈ ಒಂದು ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಹೇಗೆ ಹ್ಯಾಂಡಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಬೇಕಿತ್ತು. ಖಂಡಿತ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. ಅಥವಾ ಈ ಮಾಡ್ಯೂಲ್ ಇಂದ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಏನ್ ಇಟ್ಕೋಬಹುದು ಅವರು, ಒಂದು ಟೀಚರ್ ಟ್ರೈನಿಂಗ್ ಅಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಒಂದು ಟಿಪಿಕಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟೇಷನ್ ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ನನಗೇನಾದ್ರೂ ಹೊಸದು ಕಲಿಯಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಿಗತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಹೊಸದ್ ಕಲೀಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಖಂಡಿತ ಸಿಗತ್ತೆ, ಬಟ್ ಹೊಸ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಸಿಗ್ಬಹುದು, ಹೊಸ ಒಂದೇನೋ ಜ್ಞಾನ ಸಿಗ್ಬಹುದು ಅಂತ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟೇಷನ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಜಸ್ಟಿಫೈಡ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟೇಷನ್ಸ್, ಖಂಡಿತ ಹೌದು. ಬಟ್ ನಮ್ಮ ಮೇನು ಉದ್ದೇಶ ಏನು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟಿಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಯೂಲ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿ ನಾವು ಇದನ್ನ ಬಳಸ್ಕೋತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. ವಾಟ್ ಆರ್ ದೀಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಯೂಲ್ಸ್? These do add to the knowledge and value to what the teachers already have, but they do not give the teacher a training on grammar. They do not give the teacher a training on prose, poetry or anything. This is not a language teaching module as well. What this is a practice session or practice module, a number of modules which are focused on practicing speaking in English. So to speak in English, there are different elements of asking questions, responding to those questions, responding to students and everything. So adanna ನಾವು ಟಚ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. So this is one of the modules in the long running series of modules which are catered towards creating English environment. So this is the first module which is specifically focusing on conversations in the classroom. So when I say conversations in the classroom, these are academic conversations in the classroom. So ಒಂದು ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಸೆಷನ್ ನಡೆಯುವಾಗ ಟೀಚರ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳ ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಅದ್ಲು ಬದ್ಲು ಏನಾಗತ್ತೆ, ಮಾತಿನ ಒಂದು ಅದ್ಲು ಬದ್ಲು ಏನಾಗತ್ತೆ, ಆ ಒಂದು ಇದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಫೋಕಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ, ವಿಚ್ ಇಸ್ ಅಕಾಡೆಮಿಕ್ ಕಾನ್ವರ್ಸೇಷನ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ರೂಮ್. So objectives, as you have in front of you, discuss the steps involved in having a classroom conversation, creating questions, creating an expected answer. We will look into what those expected answers are, and redirecting and probing. We'll look into what redirecting and what probing are when we reach that stage in the session. So without any further ado, let's begin our discussions on this content, and let's look into how can we have efficient and effective classroom conversations, effective academic classroom conversations. So as teacher mentors, ನಾವು ಟೀಚರ್ ಟ್ರೈನಿಂಗ್ ಸೆಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಕುಳಿತಿರುವಾಗ ನಾವು ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಸೆಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಫಾಲೋ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತೀವಿ. ಬಟ್ ಪರದೆಯ ಹಿಂದಿನ ಒಂದು ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಅಂಶಗಳು ನಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಆ ಪರದೆಯ ಹಿಂದಿನ ಅಂಶಗಳು ಏನು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ಸ್ ಏನು ನಮ್ಮ ಟೀಚರ್ಸಿಗೆ ಕಾಣಿಸುತ್ತೆ, ಇದು ಒಂದು ನಮ್ಮ ಟೀಚರ್ ಟ್ರೈನಿಂಗ್ ಸೆಷನ್ ನಡೆಯುವಾಗ ಆ ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ಸ್ಗಳು ತುಂಬಾ ಮೆಟಿಕ್ಯುಲಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಡಿಸೈನ್ ಮಾಡಲಾಗಿದೆ. ಅದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಿದೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಕಲರ್ ಕೋಡಿಂಗ್ ಇದೆ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ಸಿಗೆ. ಸೊ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ವೈಟ್ ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ, ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಫೆಸಿಲಿಟೇಟರ್ ಅಥವಾ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡೋರು ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಅದು ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಸಾಕು, ಅದು ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಅನ್ನೋ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ದಂಗೆ ಆಗತ್ತೆ. ಬಟ್ teacher mentors come in wherever there are purple slides and blue slides. So blue slides ಏನು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ನಾನು ಮೊದಲು ಕೆಳಗಿಂದ ಮೇಲೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಡೋಣ. ಬ್ಲೂ ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ಸ್ ಏನು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ಬ್ಲೂ ಸೈಡ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ಸ್. ಈ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ಸ್ ಏನು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ಈ ಬ್ಲೂ ಸ್ಲೈಡಿಗೆ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟರ್ ಬಂದು ನಿಂತ್ರು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಅವಾಗ ಎಲ್ಲ ಟೀಚರ್ಸು ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಮಾಡೋಕೆ ಸಿದ್ಧರಾಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಕ್ಯೂ. ಪರ್ಪಸ್ ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ಸ್ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಏನು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ಇದು ಟೀಚರ್ ಮೆಂಟರ್ಸಿಗೆ ಫೆಸಿಲಿಟೇಟರ್ಸ್ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಿರೋ ಹಾಗೆ. ಸೊ ಟೀಚರ್ ಮೆಂಟರ್ಸಿಗೆ ನಾನ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು, ನಾನು ಯಾವ ಸಮಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು, ನಾನು ಒಂದು ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ನಡೆಯುವಾಗ ನನ್ನ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕರ್ತವ್ಯ ಏನು, ನನ್ನ ರೋಲ್ ಏನು ಅಂತ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಟೀಚರ್ ಮೆಂಟರ್ಸ್ ಈ ಒಂದು ಪರ್ಪಲ್ ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ಸ್ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ಪಡಿಬಹುದು. ಐ ಹೋಪ್ ದಿಸ್ ವಿಲ್ help the teacher learners, the teacher mentors facilitate or co-facilitate the activities during the teacher training sessions effectively.
Thank you, Sushil, for running us through the goals and objectives of both our English Sanchalana modules, as well as the objectives of this particular module. So having kept that in mind, let's jump into our module for today. So we start with a simple question. How do you have a classroom conversation? So there are simple things that happen in classroom conversations. If we boil down to something very simple, it is as simple as a teacher asking a question and a student giving an expected answer. The expected answer is exactly what the teacher wants from her question. But we all know that as teachers, when we are in the classroom, it is not that simple. There are some challenges that we face while asking a question and while trying to get an answer. So if you all could now give us your opinions on what are some of the challenges that we face in classroom, it'll be really nice. We expect you all to give us your answers on the chat section. This question is that when we are asking questions in the classroom, we don't always get answers we want. Why? What are the challenges that a teacher faces before getting that answer from the student? So teachers, ಈ chat box activity ಏನಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ನಾವು ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ರೂಮ್ ಕಾನ್ವರ್ಸೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾದ್ರೂ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಕೇಳಿದಾಗ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋ ಉತ್ತರ ಸಿಗೋಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಮುಂಚೆ ಹಲವಾರು ಚಾಲೆಂಜಸ್ ಫೇಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ಯಾವ ತರ ಚಾಲೆಂಜಸ್ ನೀವ್ ಫೇಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀರಾ ಅಂತ ನೀವ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. So We have Sunil sir saying that students are not able to understand the question. Adi Murthy sir says that there are language barriers. Yes. Shailaja ma'am says that sometimes there's lack of vocabulary. The students will not know the answers and translation to one another. Okay, you mean from one language to the other. All right. Okay, wonderful. Thank you, teachers, for that. So, yes, there are some challenges in getting the answer. So, how does that take place in a classroom? If suppose a teacher asks a question, she always has an expected answer in her mind. An expected answer is the ideal answer that she wants. But what does she get from the student? She gets an incorrect answer. And so what does she have to do? She has to ask additional questions. So you see how the ideal situation of a classroom conversation is very different from what actual reality takes place within the classroom's four walls. So let's discuss how to have effective classroom conversations. Let's all see how these can be done in a few steps. So, as broadly classified categories, there are two steps to classroom conversations, which are asking questions and receiving responses. But we all know that a lot takes place between these two, between the teacher asking responses, between getting responses, and after getting responses. So, if we should categorize all of those steps, what will they be? They'll be something like this: asking a question, receiving responses, giving positive feedback to those responses, modifying the answer, and then introducing the expected answer. So let's see each of these steps one by one in detail. So the first step is asking a question. But according to your lesson, you will have to decide the topic about which you're going to ask questions and need answers from the students. So there are simple things that we can do before asking a question. First, we need to decide on the topic we want to talk about. And then we have to develop both the question and the expected answer that we want to ask and receive in the class. And fourth, we need to highlight the important keywords already in our expected answers. So how do we do that? Quite simple, as we all know. We need to first decide the topic. How do we do that? We all have a syllabus and curriculum given to us, and we need to choose and focus only on one topic. We've seen in our previous modules how we can focus on prepositions, on specialized vehicles, on a lesson or a story or a poem or anything. So for example, if we choose our topic to be on the poem Sympathy, we need to focus on what the concept for the day is. And the concept would be that sympathy in itself is a concept from the poem. So, having now covered the first step where we've decided on the topic, we have to move to the second step. Now we have to develop the question. So once we've taken a lesson or a story, there is lots to it. We can't ask questions on everything. We need to decide on certain specific questions. So we've chosen the concept of sympathy, and we'll ask a question like, what is sympathy? So how do we come up with this question? There are a few tips which we can undertake. What are those tips? We've all seen that in our previous modules that we can use a vocabulary set. We can also use question building tips and sentence building tips. We'll go one by one so we refresh our memory clearly as to how we can develop questions. So the first thing is to pick a question based on any one of the three vocabulary set categories, which is definition, features, and example. And then we have to pick the correct question starter. How do we do that? A question starter like what can be used, and a definition based question can be framed. And we'll come up with something like what is sympathy? And if we use the question starter how, and we need to ask something on the features category, we'll come up with a question like how do we show concern for others? So you see how vocabulary set categories and question starters can help us frame questions. Let's actually do this as an activity, and this is exactly what we'd like to do on our Saturday Sanchalana centers. So the activity is simple. We need to recall all the question starters that we've learned and remember the three vocabulary categories which will be displayed to you on the screen. And then take 2 minutes to decide on any topic in the classroom and come up with a question using these question starters. Mentors, remember that when that screen is displayed, these are a few tips for you all to conduct the activity. What do? You first repeat the instructions that we as facilitators and presenters are giving to you, and then repeat the example that we give again, and then ask the teachers to recall any topic that they've taught in the classroom and create a simple question. They should not only create it and verbally tell it out, make sure that they write it down. And so once they've written it down, they can start sharing it. So let's just practice 2 of those steps that we've seen. The first 2 steps where we have to repeat the instruction and repeat the example. How do we do that? Simple. When this screen or this slide is displayed to you, remember that the instruction are in bullet points and I'll be telling it out loud, which is take 2 minutes and think of a topic you have taught in the classroom. Can you come up with a question related to it? Write it down before the next activity. So these are instructions that you need to repeat at your Sanchalana centers. And then I'll tell, your topics can be broadly anything that you teach in the classroom. For example, they could be on vehicles, on punctuation, on announcements, or anything as such. So once we have given examples, we have given instructions, and you've repeated the same, you can follow the rest of the instructions. And to follow the rest of the instructions, you'll again have help. First, tell the teachers to do the activity by recalling the topic, creating the question and writing it down. And if you want to give more examples, you always have our Kalika Chetarike scripts available on Teachopia, where we've come up with these special questions and that is related to each grade and grade specific from 4 to 7th. So you can use those questions from the Kalika Chetarike script, give it out to the teachers and ask them to write down their examples. So some of the questions that you can find in our Kalika Chetarike script would be something like this. What is a punctuation? Or when do we use a punctuation mark? So having kept this in mind, make sure that you not only ask the teachers to write down their questions, but also share what they've written down. So now we've decided on the topic, developed the question. Now we need to develop the expected answer. The expected answer could be something like this. Sympathy is a kind understanding and concern for others when they are sad, suffering, or having trouble. You might think like this is too big or too complex to be expected from students. That's exactly our point. When you're creating an expected answer, it is the most ideal answer that the teacher creates. This is not exactly what students will be giving you, but this is exactly what the students need to learn and give to you. So that is how we need to come up with our expected answer. But how do we come up with this ideal, most correct expected answer? There are some few tips we can again use. The tips are, again, use your vocabulary set for the topic you want to take or deal with in the class, and now use sentence building tips to create that sentence. How do we do that? We remember our three main categories of the vocabulary set. They are definition, features, and examples. Now, using these three vocabulary set categories, you've not only decided on the topic, but you need to pick out words and frame your expected answer. So let's see how we can actually come up with a very good vocabulary set and with very good answers. First thing is that we definitely have the internet in our hands and we can always search for it. You can search for simple things like simple examples of sympathy. Remember that these three vocabulary sets will help you search for specific things. You want examples? Search for examples. You want characteristics? Search for characteristics. You want the definition? Search for the definition. And if you want features, search for the features. Remember that if you want to get the simplest version of definition, features, and examples, you can always key in the words definition of sympathy for kids. That will give you the most simplest and easiest answer available on the internet. So when you key in these words, this is how Google will give you. It'll give you a lengthy but a quite tough and complex answer. What do? Do we take it all? No. We start identifying the keywords. Keywords for sympathy are feels compassion, cares about another's person's pain, misfortune, trouble, or grief. And this is in support for an individual or a situation. So take out these keywords and build your vocabulary set. That is how we slowly start developing an ideal expected answer. So once you Google or key in these words in the internet, you'll not only get definitions like this, but you'll also find images. So images are available on the internet, which are not only visually appealing, but they help you categorize things, compare things, pick out the easiest ones. You will have a lot of options to choose from. But we also saw of how this needs to be age appropriate and children friendly. How do we do that? Apps like this can help. Apps like Kids Words Smith actually give us simple definitions of any topic that we search for. Always remember that these apps are there for the basic understanding of kids, and they're always quite handy. So having done this, we would have come up with the most ideal expected answer, and you'll be able to fill all three categories of the vocabulary set for any given topic. Here, our given topic is sympathy. And so see how we've used the internet. We've used some children-friendly apps and filled in the definition, features, and examples category. So that is one thing that is taken care of while developing an expected answer. But is that enough? No, we need to move on to what we learned in our next module, which is on sentence building. There, we learned how to take those words from the vocabulary set and come up with meaningful sentences. And to come up with meaningful sentences, you can always use our sentence blocks. So sentence blocks like what, and action or description always help you categorize what you want to talk about, put in the right keywords from the right category, and describe the action or the person themselves. So sentences like sympathy is a kind understanding and concern for others. See how these words are taken from the definition category, the features category, and some from the examples category as well, and made into a sentence. If you want a different sentence, again, talk about the topic, which is sympathy, and then talk about its features if you want. Is having feelings of compassion for others. So that talks about the quality of the topic that you are dealing with. So sentence blocks can always help you come up with meaningful sentences. Having said that, we'd like to practice that once with an activity. Here again, teacher mentors, remember, like our color code said, blue color always indicates that it's a Sanchalana activity. So when Sanchalana activities are displayed, there are certain instructions and we expect an activity to be done. So here, unlike the first activity, we want you to create an answer. But remember that this is connected with your previous activity where you had to create a question. So here, what do? We've already created a question. Take 2 minutes of time and create an expected answer for the same question that you came up with and you wrote it down. And not only that, remember to use those sentence blocks that we've already learned and that we have revised just now, and and underline the important keywords, or you can even highlight them. So what are some of the mentor tips that we need to remember while we're facilitating this activity? Remember that this is a chat box activity where you need to collect the responses from the teachers and then send it to us via chat. But before that, what do you need to do? You need to first repeat our instructions, repeat the examples that we're giving you, ask the teachers to develop an expected answer, but also remind them that this must be the answer that the children will eventually learn and not know at the first shot itself. And also remember that this expected answer should contain all the important keywords, and you can also add examples of features if necessary. So if you want to give them an example for this, you can always use our teacher mentor script. Teachers, remember that your clues are always on the screen. This particular icon that you see on the top right corner will indicate that it's a chat box activity. So just to make sure that we've understood what we are going to do in our Sanchalana centers, let's practice the first 2 steps. The first 2 steps are repeat the instruction and then repeat the example. So what are the instructions and what are the examples? You need to know them very clearly. The bullet points that I will be reading out and calling out loud are the instructions. Take 2 minutes and create an expected answer. That is an instruction. Don't forget to highlight important keywords. That's also an instruction. But when I tell examples of it, like use our sentence building module, use the blocks which talk about what, who, talk about the action description. I'm giving you examples and clues as to how to come up with those expected answers. So please do repeat them as well in your Sanchalana centers. And then follow the remaining steps. So for your reference, we always have our teacher mentor scripts, and this is a snippet of our teacher mentor script that you will be receiving once this session is over. So in the teacher mentor scripts, you will not only have examples of questions, but you'll have clear-cut instructions as to what you need to do with those questions. You need to ask them to frame a question, come up with an answer like a punctuation is a mark used in writing to separate sentences and show intention. So expected answers like this can be created, and they can even be read out loud in your centers, so teachers actually understand what the requirement is. So once they've written down the answers, make sure that you select a few good answers and share it via chat to us on Zoom. So now that we've actually done two activities separately, where we've created the question and an expected answer, when this particular slide is displayed, we'd expect you to share both of them. So when the previous two activities are being conducted, you just need to collect them and keep it with you. But once this this screen is displayed, make sure that you start sharing it with us. So what are things that you need to keep in mind as mentors when you're sharing with us? Do repeat the instructions. Repeat the examples that we'll give to you. Make sure that the teachers work this particular activity in pairs, because they need to come up with a question and an answer. And also encourage the teachers to share their expected question and answer first within themselves, discuss it, speak it out loud, and then share it with the entire group. And also reassure the teachers that there is nothing as the perfect, the correct, the most ideal question or answer. We just want them to speak and practice whatever topic they'll be dealing with in class in English. So again, if we have to practice some of the sentences, what would that be? Now you have the opportunity, teacher mentors. If you have to conduct a pair work activity, what are some sentences that you'd use in your Sanchalana centers? Could you tell us? We'd also love to hear as to how you think you can speak in English and instruct in English in your Sanchalana centers. Could you please send that to us through chat? Teacher mentors, ಏನ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಿದೀವಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಸಂಚಲನ ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಪೇರ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿಯನ್ನ ಕಂಡಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಈ ಮಾಡ್ಯೂಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳ್ತಿದೀವಿ. ಆ ಪೇರ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿಯನ್ನ ಕಂಡಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾವ ತರದ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕು, ಯಾವ ತರದ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಹಳೆ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟೀಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳಿದೀವಿ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಈ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ತರದ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ನೀವ್ ಕೊಡ್ತೀರಾ ಅಂತ ನೀವ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ. How you are trying to talk to the teachers in the centers, what kind of sentences or what kind of preparation do you take, think of, and then go to the class. ಯಾವ ತರದ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಾ ಅಂತ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದಾ? ಚಾಟ್ ಬಾಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪೇರ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿಯನ್ನ ಹೆಂಗ್ ಕಂಡಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಅನ್ನೋ ಐಡಿಯಾಸ್ ನಿಮ್ ಮೈಂಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ರೆ ಪ್ಲೀಸ್ ಡೂ ಶೇರ್ ಇಟ್ ವಿತ್ ಅಸ್. Okay, so you will be saying sentences like work in pairs, discuss in pairs. Nazima Banu ma'am says that you'll use day-to-day life experiences. Okay, how will that be done? Okay, through conversation. Okay, we are asking specifically at your Sanchalana centers, how will you try to conduct a pair work activity? This is a sentence that could be used. Discuss with your partner. First, make the pair of teachers by using flashcards or an activity. Okay, that's an idea. Will you please make pairs yourself and do the given activity? Okay. That's wonderful sentences that we can use to instruct our teachers through saying numbers. Okay, that's an idea. That's not a sentence, but that's an idea, but that's a very good idea. Select your pair and sit together. All right, wonderful. Thank you, teachers. That's how we come up and end up doing this activity. So this will be our third Sanchalana activity, where it's pair work. Remember, teachers, the last two activities are individual activities which each teacher in your Sanchalana center must do. Make sure that they do it. But this third activity is a pair work activity. So you need to give them some instructions before having done this. Our teacher mentor script will be there to help you and guide you through each step. Will tell you which slide will appear, what should you tell, what should you not tell. All of that is available. You don't have to worry about it at all. So moving on, now that we've decided on the topic, developed the question, developed our expected answer, as teachers, we need to highlight important keywords. How do we do that? We first come up with our expected answer, write it down elaborately, and then pick out the most important words. You can either underline them or highlight them. That's very, very important for us to pick out the keywords. Why? Because keywords are those words without which a topic cannot be spoken of. Like, if we have to talk about a topic like sympathy, we cannot talk about sympathy without using words like kind, understanding, concern, compassion, caring. These are words that must and should be there in our expected answers. So make sure that keywords are always present. So after having asked questions, what next? We start receiving responses. Because once we have asked questions, we don't stop there. There is something that's happening even more than that. Let's see what are some things that come under our step 2. So under step 2, we have to receive responses. The reason why we've given the word responses and not answers is simply this. It's because we receive a wide range of responses from our students. And when we pay attention, we see that there are different kinds of responses that we're getting from our students. They can be either the correct answer, they can be a partially correct answer, or most of the times, they can even be the wrong answer. What do we do that time? We need to first identify the kind of responses we're getting. Let's see how we'll do that. So this is a classic example from our textbooks. It's from the story, The Leg Trap. And if the teacher has to ask a simple question like, what did you understand about Dhira from the story? So this is quite an open-ended question where the students can give a wide range of answers, and so our expected answer must be quite elaborate. How can we do that? The answer could be something like this. Dhira was a brave and hardworking boy. He was able to catch the jewel thief with his intelligence and patience. And then we need to highlight the important keywords. Okay, this is from the teacher's end that we're doing. We've seen a story and we're asking a question. And in that question, we want to know what Dhira did and how was he as a person. So let's see how to categorize the answers that come our way, or the responses that come our way. So the first type of response that will come our way is a correct answer. How do we know something is correct? It is not necessary that our correct answer should be exactly the same as our expected answer. No, not at all. Our correct answer is definitely correct if it just has 2 or more keywords. And it has to give you most of the information that you as the teacher are seeking out. It doesn't have to be the exact same. For example, from our story Dhira, we have certain highlighted words which are our keywords. And if we get answers like Dhira was brave and he caught the thief, it answers our question. It is not exactly the same, but it is definitely similar, and it has 2 or more keywords. Answers like Dhira was smart and he was also hardworking. This is a different answer, but yet it is a correct answer. That is the magic of our open-ended questions. Because Dhira was clever and he caught the jewel thief is also the correct answer, but it can be different from other answers that children are giving. So remember that correct answers need to be similar to the expected answer, not the same. The next kind of responses that we'll be getting from our students is a partially correct answer. Now, this is the tricky part. This is neither completely correct, nor is it completely wrong. How do we identify that some answers are partially correct? These answers will have very few keywords, but even those keywords are not exactly the same. They're a little similar. If they can be just changed a little, it'll give you your expected answer. And partially correct answers are also those answers that actually lack the complete information that you are looking out as teachers. So how do you know that? Again, to our example from Dhira's story, if this is our expected answer and our question is, what do you understand of Dhira from the story? And then you get an answer like Dhira was brave, Dhira was smart, Dhira caught the jewel thief. All of these are correct. But are they giving out the entire information that you want about Dhira? No. You want to know what he did, how he did, and how was he as a person. It's not giving out all of that, but it is giving a little bit. So this can be categorized as a partially correct answer. The next kind of responses that we will be getting from our learners is a wrong answer. So how can we categorize something as a wrong answer? It is simple. These answers will have no similar keywords from the expected answer, and they will be completely irrelevant. How come? Again, a classic example for that would be Dhira was a shoe shine. It lacks complete keywords from the expected answer, and it is completely irrelevant. So now, another example of that could also be Dhira was afraid of the police. Remember that this is from the story, yes, but is it answering or catering to the question that you have posed in front of the students as a teacher? No. So Dhira was a thief might be true, but it is not answering the question that you are posing. And that is why this is categorized as a wrong answer. So now moving forward to our next Sanchalana activity. This is a think and speak activity where the teachers will be required to speak out their answers to you as the teacher mentors, and you will have to collect those answers, teacher mentors. But the simple thing here is that you will have a clue framework, a clue sentence framework to help you out. And the sentence framework is that I think this response is a dash response. If a child responded with this answer, I would tell them dash. So this is the framework in which we want the teachers to actually give us answers. This activity is nothing but we will display something on our screen, and the teachers in your Sanchalana centers will actually have to identify What kind of response is that? Is it a correct, partially correct, or wrong answer? So how do you conduct this activity? Simple. Repeat the instructions that we as facilitators are giving you. Repeat the example. Give the teachers some amount of time to reflect on the question and answer that is being displayed, because they do need to take some time to look at it, read it out, understand, and then try and give their answers. Also, remind them that the purpose of displaying that on the screen is for the teachers to identify whether that student response is correct, partially correct, or wrong. And if necessary, please do repeat the instructions in Kannada. Remember that this is a speaking activity that you need to conduct. Remember, teacher mentors, ಈ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ನಾವು ಒಂದು ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ ನಿಮ್ ಮುಂದೆ ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ಲೇ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಆ ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದ್ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಒಂದ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಒಂದ್ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟಿನ ಉತ್ತರ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ಉತ್ತರ ಯಾವ ತರದ ಉತ್ತರ ಅಂತ ನೀವ್ ಕ್ಯಾಟಗರೈಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂತ ನೀವ್ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಸೆಂಟರ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಅದ್ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆನ್ಸರ್ನ ಅಥವಾ ಪಾರ್ಷಲಿ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ನ ಅಥವಾ ರಾಂಗ್ ಆನ್ಸರ್ನ ಅಂತ ಕ್ಯಾಟಗರೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಆ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಹೇಳ್ದಾಗ ನೀವು ಆ ಆನ್ಸರ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ವಾಟ್ ವಿ ವಾಂಟ್ ಯು ಟು ಡೂ in our Sanchalana centers. Remember that your clues are always present on the screen with the icons to your top right corner. Just looking at that, you can know whether this is a pair work activity, this is a speaking activity, is this an individual activity, or what that is. Also, you can always use samples from our mentor scripts. Our mentor scripts will be circulated to you, like I've informed earlier, after this session, and you can take some examples from that and actually tell it out loud in your Sanchalana centers for the teachers to actually understand. So if, for example, an answer is, I think this response is a partially correct response. If a child responded with this answer, I would tell them to keep thinking a little more. You see how here the sentence framework that we mentioned earlier is used, and the blanks are filled with the opinions that teachers have. They've written it down, or they've added it to that sentence, that framework, and they've shared it. That is the kind of answers that we'll be actually expecting. So let's practice that out in our minds a little. So what do you as teacher mentors think when you're conducting this activity? What are some steps that you would tell the teachers to in order for them to successfully understand and do this activity? Teacher mentors, ivaga ನಾವು ಒಂದು ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿಯನ್ನ ನೋಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಆ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮೆಂಟರ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿ ನೀವ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂತಾನು ನೋಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಇವಾಗ ಈ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿಯನ್ನ ನೀವ್ ಕಂಡಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಮುಂದೆ ನಿಂತು ನೀವ್ ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಾ, ಯಾವ ತರದ ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸಸ್, ಯಾವ ತರದ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ಅಂತ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದಾ ನೀವು ಚಾಟ್ ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಮುಖಾಂತರ? All right. So having that in mind, this is the picture that we'll be displaying to you. This is the expected answer, which is an ambulance is a specialized vehicle that carries sick or injured people to a hospital. The question is, what is an ambulance? The answer that this particular student is giving is an ambulance is a vehicle. What kind of response do you think this is what this particular activity requires you to do. So remember that you need to respond in this particular framework. Teacher mentors, can we have you all give us your answers just as a practice using this framework? I think this response is a partially correct response. That is exactly how we want our answers to be. Could you also tell how you'll respond to it? If a child responded with this answer, I would tell them, teacher mentors, could you please observe the framework that is given? You have completed the first blank. Could you tell us how the second blank could be filled? Okay, you tell them. Good try. Wonderful. That's exactly how. Ah, your answer is partially correct. Good. Think little ahead. So now that we have moved on from asking questions to learning what kind of responses we'll be getting, what's the next step? It is to give positive feedback.
So when you receive a response from students, it's always nice to give them a feedback. Now, a feedback has to be positive. It has to be appreciative, even if you do not get the expected answers. Now, what do we say when a student gives a positive feedback, a correct answer? So here we give them a positive feedback with appreciative statements like, well done. So you're telling them what they have done is good. You chanag madidira, you have done a wonderful job, well done. Now, how do you tell this to the students is what we'll say now. I would want you all to listen to me and repeat it wherever you are. So remember, you have to say it with correct intonation. Andre ನೀವು ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕಿದ್ರೆ full ಜೋಶ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕು. Like very good. That is correct. Good answer. Wonderful answer. Great. Well done. That's nice. Excellent. Good job. Now, when a student is giving a partially correct answer, we need to respond to them positively. First, we need to give them encouraging comments, and then by asking them more questions that help them arrive at the right answer. So this is technically called probing, which we will take up in the following sessions. Now, how do we give, what kind of feedback do we give when they're giving a partially correct answer? So again, I would want you all to listen and repeat after me. You'll say things like, good. Let's think of some more words. That is a great start. Keep thinking. You are very close. Good work. You are very close. You are right. Think a little more. This is a good answer. Let us think some more. Or you can say, I love your suggestion. Now, moving forward. Now, what happens when you receive a wrong answer? Now, when a student responds like this, you still need to respond to them positively by first making constructive statements, and then you redirect them to the correct answer, and you need to help them in arriving at the right answer. So this technique is basically called redirection. Now, what are the things that you can say when you are redirecting them, or even though your student has given a wrong answer? Now, let's listen and repeat. Let me repeat that question for you. Let us read that again. I like it that you tried, but this is not the answer I am looking for. This is a good try, but that's not the answer I am looking for. So now here, what we are doing is, even though they are wrong, you don't tell them that, oh, you've given a wrong answer, that is wrong. But instead, you give them positive feedbacks like the statements that you just heard. Now, dear mentors, when these slides are happening, when we are asking them to listen and repeat, if you look at the right-hand side corner, the icon is to listen and repeat. So you listen and then you speak. So during this activity, you have to ensure that all the teachers are listening. You have to look for teachers who aren't actively participating and ask them. Maybe they need a little help. And there are teachers must be struggling to repeat, or maybe we are going fast. Namge gottagala. So you need to help them in pronunciation whenever possible. So let's practice. Now, Iga, when we are presenting the listen and repeat activity, ನೀವು ಏನೇನ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಅಂತ you can just tell us in the chat box, or remember the mentor tips that you will be receiving in your mentor scripts that will follow as soon as the PPT, as soon as the presentation is over.
So now that we've given a positive feedback, what next? There's another step that we need to follow, which is modifying the answer. So how do we do that? That's step number 4. And simple steps like reiterating the correct words or the correct keywords from the responses and introducing the missing keywords are some things that we as teachers must do. Teacher mentors, please do remember that this is a step which we are giving out as extra information to you as teacher mentors. This will not be handled in the TTM due to lack of time, but we would like for you to discuss or talk about this with your teachers at your Sanchalana centers if possible after the webinar. So how do we modify our answers? So if we have some question coming our way, which is what are prepositions? And we come up with an expected answer like this, we need to first underline and highlight the keywords. So a preposition is a word that tells you where or when something is in relation to something else. For example, before, after, over, on, in, out, and under. So having done that, how do we modify the answers that we're getting our way? We are not going to get all correct answers. We all know that. Even if we've got correct answers, they're not going to be exactly the same as our expected answers. So that is why it's important that after having given feedback, we need to modify the answer. But the first step in modifying is reiterate the correct words and validate what the answers that you're getting from the children. If you're getting some phrases or just words or incomplete sentences, just write them on the board so that the students know that, okay, this is correct. That's why the teacher is writing it on the board. So write down examples, write down features, write down all those, and then start filling the missing keywords. You'll know that there are more examples that can be given. There are more features that can be given to prepositions. There are more definition words that can be added. So add all of that onto your board and you'll come up with a modification of the answer. But is that all? No, we need to move on to our next step of introducing the expected answer, which is our last step in classroom conversations part 1. So how do we introduce our expected answers? Remember, teachers, that this expected answer is always in your mind as teachers. It is not automatically known by the students. You need to tell them, tell it to them. You need to introduce it to them. So some ways in which you can do this is write it on the blackboard, repeat the question so that they remember for what this answer is, and then read the expected answer out loud for your students. And if necessary, you can ask them to repeat it after you as well. So once you've written the expected answer statement on the board, please do underline the important keywords that you've used. And if possible, keep a few of the responses from the children on the board for reference. This would really help and encourage the learners to answer better and to remember their answers. So once you've written down the expected answer on the board, you need to repeat the question so that the students remember what the question was about, and then read out the answer out loud for them, where you can have them repeat it after you as well. Remember that it is important for you to write the answer down, repeat the question, and then read out the answer in such a way that the students repeat after you, and that is when they will actually learn the answer perfectly.
With this, let's discuss some teacher learning materials that we can think about, that we can build on our own and also use it in our classrooms to enhance these conversations in our classrooms. So we are taking prepositions as the example concept to look at some TLM ideas as well as some activities. So the first idea is to use any image available with you. So what we usually do is we start looking for specific materials. Now TLMs ಅಂತ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ನಾವು TLMs ಹುಡುಕೋತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ, ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಜಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ, ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಗಳನ್ನ ಕೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಬಟ್ ನಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಏನ್ ಇದೆ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಅವೈಲೇಬಲ್ ಏನಿದೆ ಅದನ್ನೇ ನಾವು ಬಳಸಿ ಅದನ್ನೇ ನಾವು TLM ಆಗಿ ಹೇಗೆ ಬಳಸ್ಬೋದು ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಐಡಿಯಾನ ನೋಡೋಣ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಅನ್ ಇಮೇಜ್ ದಟ್ ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ವಿತ್ ಮೀ. ಇದೊಂದು ನನ್ನ ಹತ್ರ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದ ಇಮೇಜು. ನಾನು ಇದನ್ನೇನ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ, ನನಗೆ ಯಾರು ಇದನ್ನ ಬಳಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ ಅಂತ ಬೇಕಂತ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ನನಗೆ ನೋಡೋಣ ಇದನ್ನ ಹೇಗೆ ಬಳಸ್ಕೋಬಹುದು ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ನನಗೆ ಇವತ್ತು ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ರೂಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರೆಪೋಸಿಷನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕಲಿಸ್ಬೇಕಿದೆ. ನನ್ನ ಹತ್ರ ಇದು ಒಂದು ಇಮೇಜ್ ಇದೆ ನನ್ ಮುಂದೆ. ಸೊ ವಾಟ್ ಐ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಡೂ ಇಸ್ ಲುಕ್ ಫಾರ್ ಅ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ರೆಫರೆನ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಅ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ರೆಫರೆನ್ಸ್ ಪ್ರೆಪೋಸಿಷನ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಪ್ರೆಪೋಸಿಷನ್ಸ್ ಯಾವಾಗ್ಲೂ ನಮಗೆ ಒಂದು ವಸ್ತು ಎಲ್ಲಿದೆ ಅಂತ ನಮಗೆ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಕೊಡುವುದರಿಂದ ಒಂದು ವಸ್ತುನ ನಾವು ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಣ. ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್, ಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ಲುಕ್ ಎಟ್ ದಿಸ್ ಮಗ್ ನಾವು. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ವೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ದಿಸ್ ಮಗ್ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಕೇಳಬಹುದು. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಫ್ರೇಮ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಅನ್ನ ಬಳಸ್ಕೋಬಹುದು ಟೀಚರ್ ಮೆಂಟರ್ಸ್. ಅಂಡ್ ಈ ಒಂದು ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಅನ್ನ ನೀವು ಖಂಡಿತ ಸಂಚಲನ ಟೀಚರ್ ಟ್ರೈನಿಂಗ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಟೀಚರ್ಸಿಗೆ ಖಂಡಿತ ಪಾಸ್ ಆನ್ ಮಾಡಿ. That you can use the teacher question frameworks that we have been discussing about and ask simple questions like where is the mug? So where is the mug? It is on the table. So table is our point of reference. So table anne point of reference agi itkondo now next question nanu in create madkobodu. Where is the calendar? The calendar is above the table. Table again being the point of reference. So ನಾನು ಹಾಗೆ ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು, where is the cupboard? So answer ಏನಾಗತ್ತೆ, cupboard is beside the table. So ಈಗ point of reference change ಮಾಡೋಣ and let's talk about books. So if I ask you where are the books, you will have to say with cupboard as the point of reference, you have to say the books are inside the cupboard. Wonderful idea, right? But ಇಷ್ಟು ಸುಲಭನೂ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಪ್ರೆಪೋಸಿಷನ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಾಂಪ್ಲಿಕೇಟೆಡ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಯಾವ ಅದು ಪ್ರೆಪೋಸಿಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಸಮಥಿಂಗ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಅಬವ್, ಆನ್, ಮತ್ತೆ ಬಿಲೋ, ಅಂಡರ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಅಕ್ರಾಸ್. ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಏಕದಮ್ ಸುಲಭವಾಗಿ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಷ್ಟ ಆಗತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಅವಾಗ ನಾವ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಅವಾಗ ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಆದ ಇಮೇಜಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾವು ಹುಡುಕ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ನನಗೆ ಇದೊಂದು ಇಮೇಜ್ ನಾನು ಹುಡುಕಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ನನಗೆ ಈ ಇಮೇಜ್ ಇಂದ ನಾನು ಏನ್ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡಿಸ್ಕೋಬಹುದು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಅಕ್ರಾಸ್ ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾನು ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡಿಸ್ಕೋಬಹುದು. ಸೊ ಈ ಒಂದು ಸನ್ನಿವೇಶಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತ್ರ ನಾವು ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಇಮೇಜಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹುಡುಕೊಂತ ಹೋಗ್ಬಹುದು. ಅದೇ ತರ ಯಾವುದೇ ಇಮೇಜ್ ನಮಗೆ ಕೈಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಕ್ಕರೂ ಕೂಡ ಆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಇಮೇಜಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಗಳು ಇದ್ದೇ ಇರ್ತವೆ. ಆ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಬಳಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಾವು ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಪ್ರೆಪೋಸಿಷನ್ಸ್ ಗಳನ್ನ ನಾವು ಹೈಲೈಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ತೋರಿಸಬಹುದು. So teacher mentors, this is one activity that you can discuss with the teachers on the day of Sanchalana and take their responses and discuss on more such ideas. Going forward, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಐಡಿಯಾ ಏನು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ preposition box. So what is this preposition box? This is just a simple box that I got in my classroom. ನಮ್ಮ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ರೂಮ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಬಾಕ್ಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೂ ಡಬ್ಬ ಅಂದ್ರೂ ಸಿಗತ್ತೆ, ಖಂಡಿತವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಸಿಗತ್ತೆ. ಅದು ಚಾಕ್ ಪೀಸ್ ಇಡೋ ಡಬ್ಬ ಆದ್ರೂ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು. ಆ ಡಬ್ಬನ ನಾನು ತಗೊಂಡು ನಾನೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ವಸ್ತುನ ಸೇರಿಸ್ಕೋತೀನಿ. ಆ ವಸ್ತು ಜೊತೆಗೆ ನಾವು ಈಗ ಆಟ ಆಡೋಣ. ಹೇಗೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಮೊದಲು ಆ ಡಬ್ಬಿನ ತಗೊಂಡು ಅದರ ಅಕ್ಕಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಬಿಸೈಡ್ ಅನ್ನೋ ಪ್ರಿಪೋಸಿಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಬರೆದ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಸೊ ಅವಾಗ ನಾನು ಆ ವಸ್ತು, ಈಗ ನನ್ನ ಕೈಯಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಿದೆ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ವಸ್ತು, ನನಗೆ ಒಂದು ಫ್ಯಾನ್ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದೆ. ಆ ಒಂದು ಫ್ಯಾನ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾನು ಆ ಡಬ್ಬಿ ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಟಾಗ ಅಲ್ಲಿರೋ ವರ್ಡ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾನು ರೆಫರ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ಬಹುದು, the fan is beside the box. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ನಾನು ಆ ಡಬ್ಬಿ ಮೇಲ್ಮೈ ಅಥವಾ ಮೇಲ್ಭಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಥವಾ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದೇನಾದ್ರೂ ಮುಚ್ಚಳ ಇದ್ರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಲಿಡ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಆ ಲಿಡ್ ಮೇಲೆ ನಾನೇನ್ ಬರಿತೀನಿ ಆನ್ ಅಂತ ಬರಿಬಹುದು. ಅವಾಗ ಏನಾಗ್ಬಿಡತ್ತೆ, ಆ ವಸ್ತುನ ನಾನು ಆ ಡಬ್ಬಿಯ ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆ ಇಟ್ಟಾಗ ಐ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸೇ ದ ಫ್ಯಾನ್ ಇಸ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಬಾಕ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಅದೇ ತರ ಆ ಬಾಕ್ಸಿನ ಒಳಗಡೆ ನಾನು ಇನ್ಸೈಡ್ ಅನ್ನೋ ವರ್ಡ್ ಅನ್ನ ಬರಿಬಹುದು. ಸೊ ಅವಾಗ ಏನಾಗ್ಬಿಡತ್ತೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಆ ವಸ್ತುನ ನಾನು ಏನಾದ್ರೂ ಬಾಕ್ಸ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಇಟ್ರೆ ಐ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಅ ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಸೇಯಿಂಗ್ ದ ಫ್ಯಾನ್ ಇಸ್ ಇನ್ಸೈಡ್ ದ ಬಾಕ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಆ ಒಂದು ಬಾಕ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಬಳಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಾವು ಪ್ರಿಪೋಸಿಷನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕಲಿಸಬಹುದು. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ಡಬ್ಬಿನೇ ಬೇಕು ಅಂತಾನೂ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಸುಮ್ನೆ ಆಟಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ತುಂಬಾ ಕಿಟ್ಸ್ಗಳು ಖಂಡಿತ ಇದ್ದೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ಕಿಟ್ಸ್ ಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಶೇಪ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಶೇಪ್ಸ್ ಕಲಿಸೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಮ್ಯಾಥಮೆಟಿಕ್ಸ್ ಕಿಟ್ ಇಂದ ಶೇಪ್ಸ್ ಎತ್ಕೋಬಹುದು, ಅಥವಾ ಶೇಪ್ಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಂದ ಹೇಳಿಸಿ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಸ್ಬೋದು. ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಿ ಅ ವೆರಿ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟಿವ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ. ಸೊ ಒನ್ಸ್ ದ ಚಿಲ್ಡ್ರನ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟೆಡ್ ದ ಶೇಪ್ಸ್ or you have collected the shapes from different kits, all you can ask the children to do is place the shapes on top of each other. For example, I can say place the triangle on the square. ಅವಾಗ ಏನಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ನನಗೊಂದು ವಿಜುವಲ್ ಎಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಕೂಡ ಆಡ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ. ಸೊ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಇಂಟಿಗ್ರೇಟ್ ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಏನಿತ್ತು ಕ್ಯಾನೆಸ್ಥೆಟಿಕ್ ಆಗಿರಬಹುದು, ವಿಜುವಲ್ ಎಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿರಬಹುದು ಅನ್ನ ಆಡ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನಾವು ಅದೇ ತರಹ ಪ್ರೆಪೋಸಿಷನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕಲಿಸ್ಕೊಂತ ಹೋಗ್ಬಹುದು. ಸೊ ಅದೇ ಒಂದು ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ನೀವು ಈಗ ನಿಮ್ ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್ ಮೇಲೆ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ. ಇದೇ ರೀತಿ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ಸ್ ಆಗ್ಲಿ, ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಇಮೇಜಸ್ ಆಗ್ಲಿ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಹಾಕೊಂತ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ದಿಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಕ್ಯೂರಿಯಸ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಫಾರ್ ದ ಲರ್ನರ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಈಗ ಟೀಚರ್ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಈಗಾದ್ರೂ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಇದೇ ಮಾಡ್ಯೂಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಹೇಗೆ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಅಂಡ್ ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ಪಾಸಿಟಿವ್ ಆಗಿ ಹೇಗೆ ರೆಸ್ಪಾಂಡ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಅಂತ ನೋಡಿದ್ವಿ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಸೊ ಅದೇ ಒಂದು ಉದ್ದೇಶಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಫಿಸಿಕಲ್ ಎಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಅಂತ ನೋಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ ಈ ಗುಡ್ ಜಾಬ್, ಗ್ರೇಟ್, ದಟ್ ವಾಸ್ ಎ ಗುಡ್ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಅಂತ ಅವೆಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಪಾಸಿಟಿವ್ ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ನೋಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಅದರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಆಸ್ ಅನ್ ಆಡ್ ಆನ್ ಟು ಯುವರ್ ವರ್ಬಲ್ ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಒಂದು ಫಿಸಿಕಲ್ ಎಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಹೇಗೆ, ನಾವು ಎಲ್ರೂ ಟೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಎಲ್ರೂ ವಾಟ್ಸ್ಆಪ್ ಬಳಸ್ತೀವಿ. ಆ ವಾಟ್ಸ್ಆಪ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಕೆಲವೊಂದ್ಸಲ ವರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ, ಬರೀ ಇಮೋಷನ್ಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಥವಾ ಇಮೋಜಿಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಅದೇ ಇಮೋಜಿಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಬಳಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ತುಂಬಾ ಪಾಸಿಟಿವ್ ಆದ ಒಂದು ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕೊಡಬಹುದು. ಹೇಗೆ, ಸೊ ಒಂದು ಐಸ್ ಕ್ರೀಮ್ ಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಇದ್ರೆ ಸಾಕು, ನಾವು ಬೇಕಿದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಪೇಪರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವೇ ಡ್ರಾ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಅಥವಾ ಇಮೋಜಿಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಪ್ರಿಂಟ್ ಔಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಸಿ ನಾವು ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಪ್ಸ್ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬಹುದು. ಸ್ಟಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಆ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಪ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಅಥವಾ ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಡ್ರಾ ಮಾಡಿರೋ ಚಿಟ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಹಚ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಅದೇ ಒಂದು ಪಾಸಿಟಿವ್ ಆದ ಫೀಡ್ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಕೊಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ, ಪಾಸಿಟಿವ್ ಆಗಿ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಹ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಹೆಲ್ಡ್ ಒಂದು TLM ಆಗ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ನೀವು ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ಕೇಳ್ತೀರಾ, ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಉತ್ತರ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಆವಾಗ ನೀವು ಆ ಉತ್ತರ ಹೇಗಿದೆ ಅದರ ತಕ್ಕ ಹಾಗೆ ನೀವು ಬೇಕಾದ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟಿಕ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಎತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಬಳಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಇನ್ನೂ ಎನ್ಕರೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕೊಡಬಹುದು. ಸೊ ನಾವ್ ದಿಸ್ ಬ್ರಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಅಸ್ ಟು ದಿ ಎಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿಸ್ ಸೆಷನ್. ಐ ಥಿಂಕ್ ದಿಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಬಿನ್ ಅ ವಂಡರ್ಫುಲ್ ಸೆಷನ್ and curious one. Let's just recall ನಾವೇನೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾತಾಡಿದೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. So I think we began with asking a question as the first step to classroom conversations. The second step was receiving responses. ನಾವು ನೋಡಿದ್ವಿ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ರಿಸೀವ್ ಹೇಗ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು, ನಾವು ಕ್ಯಾಟಗರೈಸ್ ಹೇಗ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. ಕ್ಯಾಟಗರೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು ಅದರ ತಕ್ಕ ಹಾಗೆ ಫೀಡ್ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕೊಟ್ವಿ. ಯಾವ ತರ ಫೀಡ್ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕೊಟ್ವಿ, ಪಾಸಿಟಿವ್ ಆದ ಫೀಡ್ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕೊಟ್ವಿ. ಆ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ತಕ್ಕ ಹಾಗೆ ನಾವು ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಗಳನ್ನ ಮಾಡಿಫೈ ಕೂಡ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ವಿ. ಯಾಕೆ ಮಾಡಿಫೈ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ವಿ, ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ ಒಂದು ಉದ್ದೇಶ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ವಿ, ನಾವು ಒಂದು ಗುರಿಯನ್ನ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಯಾವ್ದದು ಗುರಿ, ಅದು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಅನ್ನ. ಆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಕಡೆಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲರ ಉತ್ತರಗಳು ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು, ಎಲ್ಲರ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಅಲೈನ್ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ನಾವೊಂದು ಉದ್ದೇಶ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮಾಡಿಫೈ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ಮಾಡಿಫೈ ಮಾಡಿ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ, ಅವರ ಜೊತೆ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ, ಕನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಆಗಿ ಒಂದು ಡಿಸ್ಕಷನ್ಸ್ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು ನಮ್ಮ ಗುರಿಯನ್ನ ನಾವು ಮುಂದೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳ ಮುಂದೆ ಬಿಚ್ಚಿಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಏನದು? ನಮ್ಮ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಆನ್ಸರ್, ವಿಚ್ gives the children the intended target or intended outcome of the whole question that we were asking. This might look a very like a very elaborate thing, but ಪ್ರತಿ ಒಂದು ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಕೇಳಿದಾಗ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಈ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾವು ಬಳಸ್ಕೊಂತ ಹೋದ್ರೆ, if this becomes our practice and this practice becomes our intuition, I think our classroom conversations will be that much more effective. Now that's the end of the content for this session. But teachers, ನೀವು ಇದೇ ಕಾಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಇದೇ ಸೆಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಫೆಸಿಲಿಟೇಟರ್ಸ್ ಮಾತಾಡೋದನ್ನ ಕೇಳಿರಬಹುದು. ಕಲಿಕಾ ಚೇತರಿಕೆ ಡಾಕ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ರೆಫರ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳೋದನ್ನ ನೀವು ಕೇಳಿರ್ತೀರ. ಸೊ ನನಗನ್ಸೋ ಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲರ ಹತ್ರ ಟೀಚೋಪಿಯಾ ಆಪ್ ಅಂತೂ ಇದ್ದೇ ಇದೆ. ಬಟ್ ಏನಪ್ಪಾ ಅದು ಕಲಿಕಾ ಚೇತರಿಕೆ ಡಾಕ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ನೀವೇನಾದ್ರೂ ನೋಡಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗದೆ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ರೆ ನೋಡೋಣ. ಇವತ್ತು ಅದನ್ನ ಟೀಚೋಪಿಯಾ ಆಪ್ ಅನ್ನ ಓಪನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನೋಡೋಣ. ಸೊ ಒಂದ್ಸಲ ಟೀಚೋಪಿಯಾ ಆಪ್ ಓಪನ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ನಾವು ಮೊದಲನೇದಾಗಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ನಮಗೆ ಬೇಕಾದ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಯಾವುದು ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಸೆಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವೇನ್ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ, ನಾವು ಟೀಚೋಪಿಯಾ ಆಪ್ ಓಪನ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ ನಾನು. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನನಗೆ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ಟ್ಯಾಬ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನನಗೆ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಬೇಕಿತ್ತು. ಅದನ್ನ ನಾನು ನೋಡ್ಕೋತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ನನಗೇನಿಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಲೆಸನ್ ಪ್ಲಾನ್ ಸಿಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಲೆಸನ್ ಪ್ಲಾನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಿದೆ, ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟೀಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಆ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಫಾರ್ ದ ಲರ್ನರ್ಸ್, ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟಿವಿಟಿಯಿಂದ ತುಂಬಿದೆ. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಮಲ್ಟಿಪಲ್ ಇಂಟೆಲಿಜೆನ್ಸ್ ಇಂದ ತುಂಬಿರೋ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟೀಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಅದನ್ನ ಒಂದು ಮೆಟಿಕ್ಯುಲಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಡಿಸೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿರೋ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟೀಸ್ಗಳು ಸಿಗ್ತವೆ. ನಮಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು ಈ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಕಲಿಕಾ ಚೇತರಿಕೆ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟೀಸ್ಗಳು. ಸೊ ನಾನೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ, ಅದರ್ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಕಲಿಕಾ ಚೇತರಿಕೆ ಫೋಲ್ಡರ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಹುಡುಕಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ನನಗ್ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು ಮಂತ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾನು ಸೆಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬಹುದು. ಆ ಮಂತಿನ ಅನುಸಾರವಾಗಿ ನನಗೆ ಕಲಿಕಾ ಚೇತರಿಕೆ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ LOs ಸಿಗತ್ತೆ. ಬೇಕಾದ ಗ್ರೇಡಿಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ, ಬೇಕಾದ ಮಂತಿಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ನಾನು ಬೇಕಾದ ಲರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಔಟ್ಕಮ್ ಅಥವಾ ಬೇಕಾದ ಮೈಲ್ ಸ್ಟೋನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಓಪನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ಫೈಲ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಹುಡುಕಿ ಆ ಫೈಲ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾನು ಸರ್ಚ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. ಆ ಫೈಲ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಲಿಕಾ ಚೇತರಿಕೆ ಡಾಕ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ನಮಗೇನ್ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದೆ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರೋ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟೀಸ್ ಈ ತರ ಮಾಡಿಸಿ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಅಂತ ಇರೋ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಏನಿದೆ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ಗೆ, ಆ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಎಲಾಬರೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಆ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಯಾವ್ದೆಲ್ಲ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಪದಗಳನ್ನ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸಬಹುದು, ಯಾವ್ದೆಲ್ಲ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸಬಹುದು, ಅಥವಾ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ರೂಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಮಾತಾಡಬಹುದು ಅಂತ ಮನಸ್ಸಿದ್ದವರು ಯಾವ ತರ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ರೂಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಮಾತಾಡಬಹುದು ಮಕ್ಕಳ ಜೊತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಸಿಗತ್ತೆ. ಅದನ್ನ ಖಂಡಿತ ನೋಡಿ ಈ ಒಂದು ಮಾಡ್ಯೂಲಿನ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ನೆನಪಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ಈ ವಿಡಿಯೋಸ್ ಅವೈಲೇಬಲ್ ಆದಾಗ ಪುನರ್ ಬಳಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಪುನಃ ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಮರಳಿ ಈ ಒಂದು ಸೆಷನ್ಗೆ ಆ ಕಲಿಕಾ ಚೇತರಿಕೆ ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಟ್ ಕೈಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮರಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಖಂಡಿತ ಒಂದು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ರೂಮ್ ಅನ್ನ ಒಂದು ಇಫೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಆಗಿ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಎನ್ವೈರನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡೋ ಒಂದು ಮೊದಲ ಹೆಜ್ಜೆ ಇದಾಗತ್ತೆ. With that, we conclude this session. Thank you all teacher mentors.